Casting. Do you remember casting? Casting is when we are turning one data type into another data type. Casting would have a greater effect in Python. Python requires you to cast almost every time. If you do remember in Visual Basic, if we have declared a variable as integer, and whenever we are taking input and assigning to that integer variable, we know that whenever we take input, input is always from the keyboard in the string data type, and Python automatically cast it to integer. Sorry, Visual Basic automatically cast it to integer because it knows that this string is being assigned to an integer variable. Unless we enter wrong data, Visual Basic does not mind and it always casts. What is casting? Converting one data type to another data type. But in Python, that liberty is now gone. In Python, when you take input, we know that that input from the keyboard is always in text form. So we have to first cast it and then we will assign it to the variable. Otherwise, we would have trouble. So there may be times when we want to specify a type onto a variable. This can be done with casting. Python is an object-oriented language. What is object-oriented language? We will be discussing later. And as such, it uses classes to define data types, include primitive types. Primitive types are those which we know of. Casting in Python is therefore done using functions. Okay. Now, what are those functions? We have got integer, float, and string. So let's see how integer, float, and string works. Okay. Let's first start with integer. Okay, so this one is already integer. If you make it integer and assign to x, this will remain 1. And as you have this knowledge that integer cannot save a fractional part, so if there is any fractional part, that will be removed. So if it is 2.8, what remains? Just 2. It will be, y will be 2. And if it is 3 in string, it will become 3 in integer. All right. So integer converts any other data type to the integer data type. So if it is already integer, remains integer as in x. If it is float or a real number, that will become integer. Remember, integer does not round. It cuts off the decimal part no matter how big it is. If it is even 2.999999, it will become 2. And then if it is a string, it will take out integer and assign to the variable. Okay. Now, let's take float. What is float? I told you that float is a single data type. It's a floating point number. It's a real number. It's a fractional number. And it's a decimal number. There is no currency data type or a different data type that is representing BCD, binary coded decimal. So float is float. So 1. If it is 1, it will become 1.0 if you convert it to the float form. So this integer has been converted to its float form. This 2.8 is already in float form, so it will remain float 2.8. If this is a string 3, it will become 3.0 as in decimal because it is now converted to its float form. And if it is 4.2 in a string, it will become 4.2 in float data form. Okay, so 4.2 float. Done? Understood? I have to take attendance. This is my extra duty. Okay. All right. Afterwards, string. So this is now casting in terms of string. You can see this is S1. This is already a string, so will remain a string, will be assigned to X. This 2 will become a string. This 3.0 will become a string. Okay, so if there is any other data type, that will be converted to a string. Remember, you have got a Q&A thing. आप देखें Q&A वाला button you would have at the bottom where the controls of Zoom are there. So you can always ask a question. Okay, do not use chat, use Q&A session. Hold on for a sec.